right, have you ever envied someone else's life? Have you ever thought to yourself, gosh, I really wish I had her life? Or, I don't want your man, girl, because I got it like that, right? If you've said yes to one or to all of them, then this video is for you. I'm Marissa, and thanks for joining Daughters of Single Mothers. Today's topic is covetousness. Do you have that? Do you covet someone else's life? Or is it what everybody likes to talk about, the Jezebel spirit? Which one? So, as a daughter of a single mother, I will say that this thought can creep in at a very early age. So, when you're in adolescence, childhood, you can look around and see all of your friends with their parents, both their parents, their mom and dad, and some of that you can envy, right? So I believe that covetousness or envy creep in when you are a daughter of a single mom at an early age. At least it did for me. Until when you look around, you see your peers and their fathers in the picture, their fathers going with them on field trips, their fathers showing up to track meets. So I believe that covetousness, but that's not a word when you're a child. It starts as envy, right? And fast forward to adulthood, and that's when it becomes covetousness. So fast forward to adulthood, and now you're an adult. Now you are able to choose some of the friends that you associate with, and you have a boyfriend, your friends have boyfriends, your friends have husbands, and it can be so easy for you to envy what they have. There's a very fine line between admiring and coveting. So I'm going to walk you through those differences, those key differences. Because if you're not made aware of this, you can create and will create chaos and havoc amongst your friends and amongst your even in your own mind. So I'm going to be brutally honest here. I am going to be very vulnerable and share with you all that for me, I've never had an instance where I felt like I wanted a friend of mine's husband or a friend of mine's man ever. But what I will say is that I have had the thought of, oh, if he stares a little bit too long, I know I could if I wanted, right? There are certain gazes, certain looks that men give off that if you wanted, you could. But that doesn't mean you should. So knowing that and knowing that I've had those thoughts, right? That is where, that's as far as a line as I've ever crossed. I've never, ever coveted a friend's or a cousin, anyone's husband for that matter, right? Knowingly. People have lied. People do lie. But, you live and you learn. So being aware that, there are men that walk with God, and then there are men that don't. The men that don't walk with God and are not embedded in his word, those are the men that are easily distracted. And when I look back and think about the moments that I did have those thoughts, like, girl, I don't want your man, but I could if I wanted to, they were the men that, were not followers of Christ, that weren't in the word, right? Or that were lukewarm, tiptoeing in and out, right? Those were the men I'm talking about. And the man that I so desire is the man that is fully committed to reading his word and following Christ, right? The man that's not easily distracted. So, what I'm saying is being aware if you find yourself in a covetousness mindset or an envy mindset, ask yourself what it is that you so admire, what it is that you so desire, right? And so for me, thinking back and reflecting on my own personal development and the lack of my father not being in the picture, and me understanding what he did, right? There were several behaviors that he exhibited and that he had that led to the downfall of my parents' marriage. But what I will say is that one in particular was, him being a cheater. So knowing that I had a man from the get-go in my life that was a cheater, right? And knowing and seeing how it affected me growing up, I would never want that for anyone else. So did I ever covet somebody else's husband knowingly? No, ever, never friends, never strangers, ever, knowingly, right? So what am I saying? I'm saying I took mental notes of how someone can wreak havoc on a relationship, on a family. So, how do you move past envy, right, and into self-acceptance? First, reading God's word. That's first and foremost. Reading it with conviction, reading it with an understanding. Then, number two, is you ask yourself, what about this woman's life that I so admire? What about her life that I would like to emulate, right? So, for instance, me, for an example, I had friends that there were things about their lives that I admired, and there were things about their marriage and life that I did not admire. Taking a mental note, right? Just really assessing your own wants and your admiration from the outside looking in, and turning that into fuel for your own life. That's number two. Questions. Number three, creating a plan for yourself. Becoming the woman that knows herself, who's in touch with her emotions, right? That can handle her emotions, right? The woman that is healing, or at least, you're on the path to healing, right? Fully healed. We're always on the path to healing. And asking yourself some really hard questions. Hard questions are great, right? Asking yourself hard questions are great because it's freeing, right? It shouldn't be scary, but those questions should be freeing. And number four, bringing it back to God, full circle, right? So having an adequate prayer life is so vital. Having quiet time with God is solid solid quiet time with God is vital for your growth, vital for your healing. And it's the only thing that will convict you when you feel yourself slipping, right? So just asking the Lord, for his righteousness in your life and his will in your life. This is something that I do consistently. It's something that I do daily, right? Because it is so important for me to not fall back into, some of my previous addictions, which I've talked about, on this channel. Or even, some of the mindset that I had. So just asking the Lord for his righteousness and his will in your life. As always, I want to give glory and honor to God for restoring my voice in more ways than one. Thank you for tuning in. I want to know if you've ever experienced either side of the spectrum, either side of either envy or covetousness, right? And also, do you feel that is what we talked about in today's video, is that covetousness? Or do you think that it's the Jezebel spirit? Which one do you think it is? Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, bye for now. So here's the one last thing. So here's the Bible verse that I would encourage you all to read if you've ever experienced anything of envy or covetousness. It's Mark chapter 7, starting at verse 20. There are several scriptures that talk about covetousness. However, this is the one that I chose because this is what Jesus said. So, thanks again for watching, and bye for now. Bye.